translation you have in your hand, but you should have no difficulty in following. These words are found in Hebrews 4. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in all points as we are, yet without sin. Therefore, let us draw near with confidence to the throne of grace, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Jesus, our great high priest. Jesus, our great high priest. You may be seated. I would have you to know that as you peruse the pages of this canon known as Hebrews, it is written by an author unknown to us, and he is writing to a group of Jewish Christians who have, as a result of persecution, they left Judaism, they have become Christians, and they are now being persecuted. They are now losing their life because they love Jesus. And as a result of their persecution, they have thought it fit to go back to Judaism. And the Hebrews writer is writing to tell them that if you have left Judaism and taken on Christianity, going back does not make sense. You cannot find truth and go back to something less than truth. You cannot find Jesus and decide to go back to anything before Jesus, because after meeting Jesus, nothing else should make sense. And so he's trying to tell them that Jesus is the answer, Jesus is the reason, Jesus is their all-sufficiency, so there is nothing and no one to go back to. For this reason, he presents an argument for all of Hebrews, and his argument is Jesus is better. Jesus is better. Jesus is better. And so in chapter number 1, he says Jesus is better than the angels. In chapter 2, he says Jesus is better than the old covenant. In chapter 3, he says Jesus is better than Moses. In chapter 4 to chapter 7, he says Jesus is better than the Levitical priesthood. In chapter 8, 9, and 10, he says Jesus not only gives us a better covenant, but this covenant is built on better promises. All over the book, he's saying Jesus is better, Jesus is better, Jesus is more. And the argument is this: if Jesus is indeed better and you believe that, why are you moving? All right. And so he begins, watch this, in chapter number 1, he says, God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, had in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, by whom he made the world, who is the express image of his character and the brightness of his glory, who uphold all things by the words of his power, when he by himself purged our sins, sat down on the majesty on high. In verse 4 of chapter number 1, he then says, who being made better than the angels. And so Jesus is better. There should be no argument, no doubt in the believer's mind that Jesus is indeed better than anything else we have experienced in life. I just wish you all said amen right inside there. Because if you all don't believe Jesus is better, then we can't tell anybody else Jesus is indeed better. We can't expect people to leave lies, come to the truth, if we ourselves are not convinced that Jesus is better. Now I want you to know that when you meet our text, Hebrews chapter number 4, he begins by saying that we have not just a priest, but he's a high priest. And not just any high priest, he's a great high priest. And on the basis of Jesus being a great high priest, he says, let us hold fast to our profession. Because Jesus is who he said he is, I'm going to keep the faith and hold on for their life. And because Jesus is who he said he is, verse 16, he then says, let us come boldly to the throne of God to get grace and mercy, so that we could find help in time of need. Let me just explain that, because some of you are looking at me funny. When you look at the Old Testament was built on the Levitical priesthood. And what you had out of this Levitical priesthood was one man who is called the high priest. This high priest had a function above all functions. On the Day of Atonement, in the Hebrew it's called Yom Kippur, he would go and he would take the sacrifice of himself and the whole church. And he would go into the Holy of Holies and he would present an atonement for himself and for the people, that God may forgive their sins. Now the thing is, he only did this once a year. You all didn't get this. He only did this once a year. Some of us sin 365 times in a year. But he's doing this once a year. You have to wait 365 days before he is able to go back into the presence of God and offer atonement on your behalf. That's the old system. What he wants you to see, he says, we have a great high priest who has passed into the heavens, is what the King James says, but a better translation is passed through the heavens. And the reason why he says pass through the heavens is because he wants you to know that as the high priest under the old covenant would pass through 3 areas. 1 was the outer court. 2 was the inner sanctuary called the holies. And then behind the veil is the Holy of Holies. And this is where he is actually in God's presence. Jesus has done that in a way no high priest could. When the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies, he would find himself in the presence of God. When Jesus became our high priest, he didn't go into the temple. He went where God was. So he has passed through the heavens and is now seated at the right hand of God. And that makes him a better high priest, because the high priest before didn't really see God. Jesus is now seated at the right hand of God. And this is the thing, he's not just there on the Day of Atonement, he's there every day, because if you're like me, you don't sin just once for the year.
All right, take your time. Take your time.
I just wish you all were honest inside here. And so I'm glad that I have a high priest better than any other priest you could find, because he is now seated right next to God, and so he's there when I am ready, willing, and need him to come to my defense.
Yes, sir. Amen.
So he's a great high priest. You all see this?
All right.
And because of that, the Hebrews writer is trying to get you to do 2 things. Just 2 things. That's all I want you to do as well. I believe in preaching the text. He wants you to hold fast your profession. I want you to hold fast your profession too.
All right.
He wants you to draw near to the throne of grace so that you could find grace and mercy to help you in time of need. I want you to draw near to the throne of grace. But I need you to see something. He didn't just say, seeing that we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, he then says, Jesus, Son of God. You're seeing that?
Amen.
You all need to look in your Bibles.
Yes, sir.
Hebrews chapter number 4, verse number 14.
Yes.
Seeing then that we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What he does here is give you Jesus from 2 perspectives. Jesus is human. That's his human name. Son of God is who he is, divine. So when he says, Jesus, Son of God, he's showing you one person that has both humanity and divinity inside of him.
Yes, sir.
And I'm glad that Jesus is both man and God, because you all have not been in my shoes. You all have not walked what I've walked. But it's easy for us to criticize and condemn everybody else, even though we have not walked in their shoes.
Right.
Jesus, on the other hand, has become man, even though he's God. And as a result, he has become thirsty, even though he was the one that created water. He became hungry, even though he was the God that said to Israel, if I was hungry, I would never tell you, because the cattle on 1,000 hills are mine.
That's right.
He became man so that he not only walked, he became tired. My Jesus sat down at a well in the middle of the day because his son was hot.
All right. Yes, sir. Yes,
He
sir.
is not just God, he's man. And as a man, Jesus knows what I've been through.
All right. Yes, sir.
As a man, Jesus has been tempted in all points as I have. So he knows what it's like to not have money and think about a dishonest way.
Take your time. Take your time.
I just wish you all come on inside here. Jesus has been tempted. So while you have not walked in my shoe, I could say Jesus knows
All right.
exactly what's going on with me. I have someone in heaven seated at the right hand of God who knows and understands. Now, probably the reason why we don't get this is because we fail to appreciate if Jesus did not become man, what would happen to us.
Well.
So let me help you. It's not on the script, but I need to pause here to insert it so that I can help some of us. If Jesus did not become man and stayed in the form of God, as God, he would not have known, watch this, experientially what I am going through. Let me help you. God knows everything, amen? But even though he knows everything, there are some things even God himself cannot experience in his godness. God cannot be tempted.
All right.
And so, if God did not become man, he would not know how good temptation is sometimes. He would not realize the struggle we have with temptation on a daily basis. Don't misunderstand me. He knows there's a struggle, but he never experienced the struggle until he became man.
All right. All right. That makes sense.
God owns everything.
Yes, sir.
So he cannot relate to you having an empty cupboard.
All right. All right.
He has to become man. You all look at me funny. This is not blasphemy. You all just think about it.
Yeah. We're going. We're going.
He has to become man and become the Son of Man, where he could tell his disciples, the foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head, so that he could know what it feels like for me to be restless, to be homeless, to be destitute. I'm glad he became a man, because now he and I are on the same level and he could relate to me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I want you to know, I need you to know that God offers you help,
Yes, man.
but it's on the basis of Jesus's humanity.
All right. All right.
It's in the text. Watch this. We have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens. That's some good technology. Yes. Jesus, the Son of God.
Yes, sir.
Let us hold fast to our profession. Before I hit to the second part, he says, hold fast to your profession. If you understand that you have Jesus and the Son of God who is ready and willing at your side,
Yes, sir.
then you should be one holding on. Brother Dominic spoke this morning about his bigger brother. I don't have a brother, but I knew a friend when I was in Form 4. And this guy was a mixed martial arts specialist. His dad was a martial artist. And I was half my height.
Wow. That's all right. That's all right.
And a quarter my size.
All right.
A quarter my size, half my height. Going to secondary school, that's not a good combination.
All right.
And so as a result, everybody took the opportunity to harass me. I'm in Form 4 and they are Form 1 taller than me, heckling me when I'm supposed to be the one heckling them.
All right. All right.
And anyhow, I became very good friends with this guy. And then I realized my dynamics changed. Anytime I was around this guy, everybody who wanted to harass me thought twice.
All right. Yes, sir.
But it wasn't because of me.
Yeah, man. Yes, sir.
It was because of who I was with.
That's right.
And so what I realized is because of who I was with, I had access to resources I did not previously have
sir.
access to.
Amen.
And so I began to grand charge. That's a Trinidadian word. I began to grand charge on the access I had. he did not have to be a wrong. I was now boasting on his strength when he wasn't a wrong.
That's right.
That's what the Hebrews writer is trying to get you to understand. Because you have Jesus, the Son of God, you should be able to be walking through life with your head held high because you know who Jesus is.
That's right. Amen.
Of course, what the difference is Jesus is great and perfect. My mixed martial artist friend was not.
All right.
And so there was a time where I forgot that he left school early. And someone stepped to me. But I have gotten so full in my profession and my confession of his strength that when this person steps to me, I didn't back down.
All right. All right.
It's like, you name the place, you name the time, I will be there. And he says, after school, basketball court. I said, no problem, I'll be there. And then I get ready to look for my friend to realize he's not in school. So I decided the next best thing for me to do is to leave school early. Because I cannot face this fight by myself.
All right.
You all don't understand this. And so while my friend was not in school and I now need to worry about my life, God never leaves you nor forsakes you. He's always at the right hand of the Father advocating on your behalf. So there's never a moment where God takes a break and says, don't worry, handle life by yourself. I will come back and help you tomorrow. He's always at your side. And so it says we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize. And he sympathizes because he has experienced the things I have experienced with my weakness. Now this is the problem. I don't know about you, but when I am feeling weak, I don't need you to beat me up.
All right.
I am intimately aware of the state I am in. I don't need your judgment. I don't need your criticism. What I need is somebody who could come alongside me. And this is the Greek word sympatheo. Come alongside me and try to lift me up out of my weakness, not kick me while I'm down.
Right.
And I'm thankful that Jesus is man, but not man like some of us. Because he never kicks us while we're down. He always looks at us and tries to bring us back up. So he sympathizes with my weakness because he was tempted in all points like I am. And so because of that, he says, therefore, let us draw near with confidence. I need you all to understand this. Back in Old Testament days, when you wanted to talk to a king, you have to hope that the king wants to talk to you. The king does not always want to talk to you. So you have to pray that he wants to talk to you when you want to talk to him. Not only that, there was a sign that a king would make when he accepts you. As you walk in and say, I seek occasion with the king, he would either raise his hand or his scepter to say, let him pass.
That's right.
But not every time you bounce to see the king wants to see you. Esther, if you are Bible students, you'd be aware of this. Here it is. Mordecai is trying to tell us she needs to talk to the king. But even though the king is her husband, she says, if he doesn't want to see me, I would be dead. So even she is afraid to just approach the king, and that's her husband. What this text is telling you is that even though God is a king, he's never too busy for you, and he's always willing to have an occasion with you. And so you don't have to worry about, I wonder if God in today and if you're in a good mood. You could come boldly. God is your son, and I'm in trouble. Y'all ain't getting this. It says, you have the privilege not just to come, but to come boldly.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, some of us, we pray too timidly. I think it's time the church prays with power and with faith. Not timid. We have the Old Testament priests. as he goes into the temple with the blood. I never see him, but I could tell you what he looked like. He did not bounce into the inner temple. Because if God finds him unworthy, he drops down dead. So I'm pretty sure he's thinking about if he's worthy. And this is how he's going into the temple.
Yes, sir.
We do not have to, before God, we could come boldly because of what Jesus has done for us.
Amen.
And that should be good news. Because of my relationship to Jesus, I have access to resources I did not previously have access to. Does that make sense, church?
Amen. Amen.
So I come boldly. Now watch this. I'm not just coming boldly, but I'm coming to get grace and mercy. Now I don't know about you, but I've lived long enough to realize that in this life you need two things: grace and mercy.
Yes, sir.
And grace is not mercy, and mercy is not grace. Grace, watch this now, is where God sees to it to give you something that you do not deserve.
That's true.
That's grace.
Amen.
Mercy is where God sees to it that you do not get something that you do actually deserve.
That's right.
Let me help all you out. I am leaving work, and in Trinidad the traffic is ridiculous. Everybody has a car these days, and so the traffic is ridiculous when you're leaving work. And I realize on the highway there are 3 clearly marked lanes. But for the past 2 weeks, is that the government approved a 4th. Well, they will catch us on the way home. It's that the government approved a 4th. And I'm wondering if that road is free for everybody. I watched the road, Dominic, for about 3 weeks and see man, woman, and hopefully no child going down this 4th road. And after 3 weeks decided this road is mine too.
Well, all right. All right.
I already repented, only don't judge me. See what I'm talking about? I'm thankful God sympathizes.
Take your time. Take your time.
And as I'm traveling on the 4th, you know, that is the one time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's the one time.
One time.
Whoop, whoop.
That's right.
I pull over. Officer, how you doing? I'm doing good. How you doing? I try to be good too. You know why I pulled you over? No. You were driving on the shoulder? I thought this was a 4th lane. No, this is the shoulder. And then I am now trying to get out of a ticket because I just committed a crime.
Right.
And those who break the law are punishable by the law.
Yes, that's right.
So what I deserve is a ticket.
Yeah.
Now I need to help Wally because in Trinidad and Tobago sometimes we believe that we don't deserve a ticket for breaking the law.
That's true.
So let me make sure I say this right. What you deserve for breaking the law is a ticket.
Yeah.
The police officer has all rights to issue me a ticket. And then I begin to plead with the officer. Now, in all my pleading, the discretion still lies with the police officer. Y'all get this? He's the one that determines whether I get judgment rather, or I get mercy.
That's right.
And even though I pleaded, I was like, I have never committed a crime. Look up all your records. You would not find this name in any of your books. I am a law-abiding citizen.
Until now.
That's what he said. That's what he said. And all my goodness does not make up for the fact that I still broke the law.
That's right.
And then eventually, as he goes to get his ticket book, he asks me for my license and my insurance. I give it to him. He looks at me, I look at him. He looks at me, I look at him. And he was like, I'm in a good mood. I want you to stay here for 10 minutes and then drive off. I would not issue you
Yes, sir.
a ticket.
Praise.
That was mercy.
All right.
Because what I deserved was a ticket.
All right.
What I didn't get was what I deserve.
All right.
Mercy. What I'm saying is if you live life long enough, you would realize that you deserve mercy. Or not that you don't deserve mercy, but that God gives you mercy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In the same way, we don't always stand in need of mercy. Sometimes we stand in need of grace. And grace is where God says, even though you don't deserve this, I will still give it to you. Think about you doing an exam, getting every answer wrong, and the teacher still gives you a passing grade. That is grace. I need to help you with this. Watch this, watch this, watch this. As far as I'm aware, if you get all your answers wrong, you do not deserve to pass. But when you get what you do not deserve in a good way, that's grace.
Yes, sir.
And so what I want you to see is when you come before the throne of grace, God then says, you know what, today Anderson is going through some stuff, and because of the stuff he's going through, he may have slipped a little now and then, but instead of giving him judgment, I'll give him mercy. And then there are some other times in my life as I come to the throne of grace, God says it's not mercy you need, it's grace, and he dispenses grace. But the good part about it is that as I come to God, God, because of Jesus and who Jesus is to me, then decides whether to dispense grace or mercy, and this is because he wants to help you in your time of need. It's because he wants to help you in your time of need. Let me help you with something. Your relationship with Jesus is not just about staying out of hell.
That's true. That's true.
See, some people just come to church because they're afraid of hell.
That's right.
But your relationship with Jesus is so much more than just avoiding hell.
That's right.
And when you enter into this covenanted relationship with our great high priest, what happens is you now have access to resources you did not previously have access to help you navigate through life.
Yes.
And so one of the blessings of entering into covenant with Jesus and having him as our great high priest is that he comes at your side and he helps you navigate life.
Right.
Now, the reason why that is important, at least for me, is because I realize I need help navigating life.
Right.
Life did not come with a manual.
It's all right.
And so, I know some Christians are thinking about the Bible, but follow me here, follow me here, follow me here. Life did not come with a manual.
That's right.
And so I don't always know how I should behave in every situation.
All right.
And that's why Jesus is what we need. And so as we enter into that relationship, Jesus then furnishes us with a manual that helps us navigate through life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.